Hello IOD community, welcome to another DIY tutorial. Today is part 2 of a 3-part series where I show you how to make these product organization crates, and today we are going to focus on the molds crate for your IOD molds. You can find any of the items used today in the description or in the blog post for any IOD products. Visit the website and click the Where to Buy button in the top right hand corner to find your nearest in-person or online stockist. Step 1, we are going to start with our castings. So take your IOD Primitive Mold and your IOD Conservatory Labels Mold. Our crate is going to be labeled, so that's what the Conservatory Labels Mold is for, and then the Primitive the Primitive Mold is just for decoration because this is my favorite IOD mold, fun fact, because the rabbits are so cute and they're right up my alley. So Sarah was like, well, what mold do you want to use for this crate? And I was like, primitive, no question. So you can use resin if you want. You can use air dry clay. Either one works. We used resin because we didn't have the dry time for clay. If you are using resin, do a 1-to-1 ratio measuring by volume. It depends on the brand, but that is what the ratio for the brand we used called for. Also, please pay attention to the warning label on your resin bottle. Resin safety is very important, so wear gloves, wear a mask. Just make sure that you are protecting yourself when you are working with resin. We poured every casting, but we did not use every casting. That is fine. If this happens to you, just put them in a baggie and save them for another project. We do this all the time. We have a little box of resin castings that are from other molds that we just save for random projects, and it comes in handy. Anyways, so get your crate, and this crate is 16 by 10.5 by 7.5. This is very important because this is perfectly measured to fit the IOD molds. Sarah took her time to find a crate that would perfectly fit the IOD molds, and that is what this is. So arrange your castings in the way that you want on the face of the crate and use wood glue to attach the castings on the face of the crate once you have your composition ready. So this is the composition that we came up with and we loved, and after we glued and the glue was dry, we got our creamy white chalk paint and we began to paint it. We only used 1 coat of the white chalk paint because we actually liked the way the wood grain looked through the single layer of chalk paint. If you want the crate to look more solid white, then go ahead and give it another coat or 2 and it'll look the way to your liking. But we just did 1 coat and it ended up being just how we wanted it to. And of course it helps if you have a friend nearby to help you paint, because this is going to take a little while. It is a crate and it does have a lot of gaps, which means a lot of sides to cover and a lot of cracks to get into, which can be a little bit tricky for some. So make sure you have paintbrushes of different sizes nearby. That's going to be your friend in this process to make sure you get into all of the different crevices and make sure you can get on all of the different sides. Once the paint is dry, next is the glaze. If you used air dry clay instead of resin, you want to skip this step, or you want to wait until the air dry clay is completely dry. This is because glaze on wet clay is a disaster. Ask me how I know. But if you use resin like we did, go ahead and get to glazing. So we used a warm gray pre-made glaze, but you could easily make your own using a 4-to-1 ratio using chalk paint and water. Go ahead and apply a lot with an artist brush and remove the excess with a damp paper towel. We recommend working in smaller sections as the crate is going to want to absorb as much glaze as it can because it's very porous, because it's made out of pine and you don't want it to be splotchy. So just work in patches around the crate. It's okay if the glaze overlaps as long as you're wiping away all the excess from the high points. The glaze is going to bring out all of those deep details and really going to pop all of these castings and just add a lot of life to the face of this crate. I mean, you can go back in the video and see what the crate looked like 2 minutes ago, and wow, the transformation already is insane. The next step is to label the crate. So to do that, take your Apothecary label stamps. These pair perfectly with the Conservatory label molds because they fit perfectly inside the parameters. We used the smallest font in the Apothecary set and the IOD black ink. You can absolutely use the included plastic sheet inside for lining up your letters, but we find it's helpful to use a cut-up thin mount. Those grid lines are so useful when getting letters lined up to be just right. That's just what I found out, although you can use whatever works for you. When it comes to stamping, you want to make sure that you commit, don't shift. Remember that phrase, commit, don't shift. If you need help stamping, or if you're a beginner to stamping, head over to ironorchiddesigns.com and hit the product drop-downs. There will be a stamp drop-down where you can watch a Stamp 101 and you will get all of the tips and intel that you need. Now, a true dedicated IOD fan already knows this, but the old IOD molds do not have labels on the sides. So if you own any that don't have the name, just write it in with a Sharpie and it works perfectly. And just like that, your mold organization crate is completed. You now have a beautiful place to store all of your IOD molds and air dry clay. Thank you so much for joining part 2 of our 3-part series. Share your creations with us in the Facebook Creative Tribe. We can't wait to see you there, and we hope to see you back for our next tutorial.